Welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group. This is the bi-weekly sync. It is Thursday, 7 a.m. Pacific time, so US time, but in Europe, this is actually 1 hour earlier than typically, and that might be really, really confusing. So the US actually moved on summertime on Sunday this week. Europe is moving to summertime slightly later in this month, and because of this call was created in US time zone, this call actually is impacting for non-US people. So our monthly call, which was earlier this week, was created in Europe, so that's why the difference was impacted for the US-based people. So it's highly confusing. We absolutely get it. We'll see if we can actually fix the situation in the future. If you missed the call, by the way, and are watching this in the recording, we do apologize. This is really, really kind of one of those things where it's really hard to communicate when it is, unless you have downloaded the recurrent invite, because the recurrent invite in the Outlook is automatically adjusting based on the time zone. So that's already a good thing. Now, related on that one, just a side note, I've been in Microsoft for 13 years already, and I still remember back in 2009, 2010, there was issues related on the time zones in SharePoint 2010, actually, SharePoint 2010. So that's actually, now we're 1 decade forward. So luckily nowadays the time zones and summertimes, time zone differences and sometimes are properly implemented in the computers. I think it was 2010 actually which had the issue, which was an interesting issue related on that. Now it's 2020, so we can actually enjoy the technology to be slightly at least evolved. Now let's actually move forward on today's topic. So first of all, my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint platform team, and I'm also leading the community side of the house, so the dev community side of the Microsoft 365, so the PnP stuff and all of that. Now, because I always forget about introducing myself, and it's good practice to do that. So today we're going to do a quick update on the SharePoint framework. So there isn't actually that much new to tell. I'm going to talk about slightly why is that as well, but those who haven't heard, our Redmond office is currently basically closed, so people are working remotely. And unfortunately, the people in Redmond and in Washington State, they are not actually that used to working remotely, and that's actually causing some delays on all of our plans. So we'll see how the situation evolves, but everybody is working really hard on providing you additional capabilities. And I do agree on Ralph's comment on the chat. It is slightly ironic that the people who are implementing these tools for you to collaborate, for example, with me remotely, are not that familiar of working remotely, but it's irony itself. But I think in the long run, this is also beneficial, so everybody actually understands how we can evolve and improve those tools as well. Now, again, first we're going to talk about SharePoint Framework, then we're going to talk about quick updates on our open source projects, so PnPjs CLI, SPFx Reusable Controls, and Omen Generator. And then we have 3 demos coming up today and potentially time in the end for Q&A. I'm 100% sure that Alex and Martin are on the call. Sudhar-san, I hope you are on the call as well, and we didn't miss you because the time zone differences, but you can send a message on the chat window for confirming that. If that happens, for whatever reason, we'll get you rescheduled if you're watching the recording in here. Excellent, good, you are actually on the call. Cool. I was just worried because of the time zone mess that we're missing some of the people. Now, quick recap on how you can participate on the community, just a reminders on all of these things. So we absolutely 100% welcome you to demos as well. It can be a sample which you contributed in GitHub. It might be a sample in your GitHub repo if you don't want to share that with others in a centralized repos. It might be, let's say, a story which you implemented and not necessarily an open source sample, but something which you learned and you want to share with others within a community. Those demos are really powerful. We do have demos now booked for upcoming weeks, but there will be, obviously we're booking people at the time when people volunteer to do a demo. So there will be plenty of time for the rest of the year as well. Also, you can contribute in GitHub, report issues, submit pull requests, help with issues is also fine as well. So going to the GitHub, and if there's people asking questions, answering those questions, that super helpful as well. Now, on the GitHub, we're looking into doing kind of a shuffling again slightly to repos and also cleaning up some of the old issues. and related on some of our open source projects. So you'll see this happening, but GitHub is smart enough. So even though we are moving repos from one organization to another, you will be automatically redirected. So that's pretty cool. GitHub is actually an awesome tool for those things. So just word of a warning over there, changes are coming to consolidate for the future as well. And remember to provide feedback. Feedback. Something is missing, something isn't working. Let us know. We need to know. We want to help you. We're here basically to fix the stuff for you and make your life easier. And yes, it might be frustrating when you think every now and then that Microsoft doesn't want to listen. And it's not that we want. We want to fix everything. There are certain delays every now and then on these things there as well. But most important thing, let us know something isn't working and how we can improve. That's super, super important. Quick recap on the addresses, not going to spend too much time on there. AKMS, SP Dev Docs on documentation, videos, Microsoft 365 SharePoint PnP videos in AKMS, SP Dev videos, or M365 PnP videos actually works as well. We're in progress of changing some of the AKMS addresses and dev issues and open source as well. More and more the stuff will be centralized to the github.com/PnP organization, especially our open source samples and projects and all of that. So it's a clear what of these things are open source community driven and which sorts of things are the ones which are coming from engineering. That's basically the thinking behind of the things. A few kind of a generic notes before we go to the SharePoint framework. Because of the situation within the world, all of the organizations in Microsoft are doing similar kind of things. But last night we pushed out also our crisis communication site template in the lookbook. So if you're interested on testing out or provisioning a sample structure for your company to be used as a communication platform related on the current situation, there is a ready to go sample available in the lookbook. And if you go to the AKMS SP blog address, there is a blog post from Mark Cashman, which actually has a link to this lookbook site, or then manually explaining how you can create a communication site if needed. So take advantage of this one, really, really cool as well. The promo related on the ready-to-use template, which you can install to any tenant as long as you're a tenant administrator within a click of a button, it went live earlier today in the social media. So feel free to promote that. All of this is free for you to use any way you want. Good, and thank you for the feedback around the template. So that was a really nice exercise together with our design team, who's responsible of the experiences. So we design team and then the engineering people and PnP people who are responsible of the lookbook side and the provisioning collaborated nicely within actually quite a fast. We were able to do something cool. Now let's recap on the SharePoint framework, what's happening in here. Few let's say slides which we had here actually 2 weeks ago as well. One of the really big things for us is actually the fact that you can build Microsoft Teams tabs using SharePoint framework, and we are improving this guidance all the time, creating new videos, creating new story. In our video channel, there is a nice video already available related on how you can take any SharePoint framework report and make it as a personal application. So you can actually pin it on the left navigation in the Microsoft Teams. So you can actually truly surface your LOP data super easily in the Microsoft Teams, and we'll take care of the hosting, because that's the beauty of SharePoint framework. You don't have to worry about where the code is getting hosted because it's hosted by us automatically. So really, really cool setup. Now we'll link more and more to stuff definitely in the future, and there will be more tutorials around this one as well. Also related on learning how to do all of this stuff, we have updated our SharePoint framework tutorials, both the written format and the video format. This was news already last time as well, but want to make sure that everybody is aware of that. So there is a nice updated set of 12 videos which you can actually go through, and you'll get the basics on getting started on learning how to do SharePoint framework development. And then there's additional, let's say, training packages available from multiple vendors, which you can use then to further, let's say, enhance your skills after the basics, which you already know based on the tutorials. Now, if we have a look on what's happening after the 1.10 release, 1.10 was released in January. Right now, we had some plans related on 1.11, but because of the situation in Washington, D.C. in general, or in the Redmond area, or in the world right now, the schedules are, let's say, slightly delayed. And they're not yet locked down. Right now, SharePoint conference is still in plans to happen in Las Vegas in May. We'll see what's going to happen related on that one. We still have 2 months to go from that timeline. So within few weeks, we'll definitely be more wiser on the situation. And typically, all of the big announcements will happen in the conferences. Now, if the SharePoint conference will be cancelled, if that would happen, then most likely the announcements will still happen, and then we'll do a virtual announcements and virtual keynotes and all of that. So all of that is still to be decided. As an example, MVP Summit, which was intended to happen next week in Redmond, in Seattle, well, Seattle, Redmond, but well, anyway, is they're now transformed to be a virtual MVP Summit. So that's how we are now transforming a lot of these conferences as well. But quickly recap what are we planning to do? We are planning to actually enable SharePoint Framework in store by how would I put it, by summer, so within a few months. So there might be some changes on the timelines, but you can start thinking on, hey, wait a minute, so what if I would actually have a cool web part which I can want to sell through the app source, and then start thinking on those models as well. We're absolutely continuing on the path of unifying our tool chain, which the creating SharePoint Framework driven web parts and tabs. Microsoft Teams is a good example. Native support for Fluid Framework, absolutely in plan still. We need to get the Fluid Framework still GA'd or in a better state, and then it will be natively supported by SharePoint Framework or Microsoft 365 Framework or whatever it will be called. And faster in a dev loop is the monthly releases, and more extensions is more extensions on the UX of SharePoint Framework portals. All of this is still in the plans, it's in the roadmap, but because of the remote working situation in Redmond, a lot of the plans have been now slightly delayed. So bear with us. The situation is what it is, but we'll deal with it. And I think together as a community and as Microsoft will be much stronger when the situation is past. So we can't fix the situation, what's happened right now in the world. Let's be patient and follow up on things, and then it's going to be better sooner or later. Baby steps to the better direction. That's always the best thing to do. Related on that one, by the way, obviously for the upcoming weeks and everything, we are 100% continuing all of our community calls, to working in GitHub and all of that. None of that stuff is going to be paused for whatever reason. So all of this is continuing as expected. Now, quick update on the PnPjs side, our rapid jumps on the screen. So the PnPjs has been slightly in hold, well, not in hold, right now in hold for the happy reasons. So Patrick Rogers got a baby pretty recently, and he is now in parental leave for upcoming weeks still. So he will be back, I think, in few weeks for a while, and then he will be again away for a certain time. Basically, we do not have any critical issues, known critical issues on the PnPjs v2. So the version 2.0.3 is out, and that's the one which you get when you install stuff, and it seems to be working really, really well. We don't want to say that it's feature complete, because every single time I say that, it has a bad influence, but it looks really, really, really good from a functionality perspective, and we are not aware of any issues. So please have a look on that one. It is the easiest way to access the REST APIs in SharePoint. Patrick is getting more and more active when he's back within a few weeks, and then he'll be away again for a bigger time. I think it's the best time ever to actually prioritize your family and also help your spouse during that time. Now, on the Office 365 CLI side of the house, Waldek, Velin, and Gary are coordinating this work, and 2.8 version is out with an SPFx Dr command, and this is really, really cool if you haven't heard about this one. So you can go to your environment and say SPFx Dr, and it's going to check, do you have the right NPM version, Node version, TypeScript version, and all of those things in your machine. So it's basically a validation tool to make sure what do you need to do to ensure that you are in sync with whatever SharePoint Framework version you want to actually target your solutions. So super, super, super useful tooling, and was released as part of the 2.8 version. 2.7 had a lot of other commands as well. So pretty recently that was actually released as well, and there's a lot of commands available in here. And obviously your input is super valuable. So please keep on the feedback coming, so we understand what needs to be implemented and what are the things what you need to this tool as well. Now, on the SPFx Reusable component side or control side, we have a new version available for the React property controls. So there's a 1.17 version out. And there's a new control related on property field site picker, which is a really cool control where you can actually use in the property pane to pick up sites in your tenant. So if you have a functionality within your web part where you want to point to another site, this control is making all of that available for you. So really usable control for you to take advantage. And also in the property pane helpers, that small GIF animation, which is working on the screen, is showing that there's a GIF, there's a scrolling thing when you are actually waiting until the property pane is opening up. It's not super visible, actually. Maybe I minimize that's too small. Yeah, the scrolling GIF isn't actually that visible. Basically, there's a visual indication that the property pane is loading and to kind of reduce the wait times so it has a better end user experience. And React property controls are evolving as well. So there will be additional controls in the future. They are already queued up to get released. On the PnP SPFx community Omen generator, so this is the one which is extending the out-of-the-box generator with additional capabilities like Angular support and Amber support and Vue.js support. We do not have a new version since 2 weeks ago, so there has not been a requirement or development in here which would have need to have a new version available, but your input would be more than welcome. So please let Stefan Bauer know what you would like to have here to improve your experience, because this is really increasing your productivity as a developer on top of the out-of-the-box Yeoman generator for SharePoint Framework. So super useful thing as well. Now, I think that's it. Me talking a lot for 18 minutes in a fast pace. I do apologize always on that one. Some of it is because I'm pretty passionate about the things which we go through. But I think it's time to actually start the demos. So Alex, calling from California, unless I'm completely mistaken.
No, you're not mistaken. And let me share my desktop. Okay. Yeah, so first I will show the web part itself. So I'm doing the demo regarding the React Twitter web part that you can add to your page. So let me add it here. So basically, when you see it, it's PnP React control that shows you that the web part is not configured. So let's configure it. There are multiple options what you can see in your web part, what timeline you can see in your web part. Is it profile, likes, some list, or collection, or just one URL? So for profile, let me do my profile, apply, and you can see all my tweets in here in the web part. Let's change it to be, for example, list, and I know that David has, I believe, hockey list. It should be there. Apply, and in that case, you will see the list from David Warner with all the updates that he's collecting around the hockey. You can also change some UI stuff, like it can be a dark theme. You can hide the headers. You can have some border colors you like. And as you can see, again, I'm using some PnP controls in here. Apply. So it's dark theme. No borders for some. Well, okay. Anyway. So this is kind of it, right? So small web part that just allows you to display tweets. So basically the code for web part is pretty simple because I was using the available NPM package called React Twitter Embed. And it contains basically all the functionality we need to display tweets as a React component. So it also has great documentation with all the how to install, how to use, how to add a timeline, a tweet, and so on and so forth. So basically it describes all the properties that are available in this control. And of course it's MIT license, so you can use it free of charge. And in the code, basically what I've done in the web part, I have kind of a proxy of this React Twitter embed control. So I have all the properties for this control as a separate interface, as a separate instance in my model. In the web part itself, we have huge property pane configuration, where we basically just getting all these properties, and user can configure all the stuff you just saw on the screen. And the component itself from the web part basically just getting all these properties and calls this Twitter timeline embed component from this npm package. So as you can see, for the control itself, it's just like 55 lines of code, and it's just because I like to put every property on separate line. Otherwise, it would be like 3-4 lines of code, right? Good thing of this implementation, of this web part implementation, so it's kind of, this sample is started because there was a question in PnP reusable controls repo, if there is some control to display the Twitter. And I decided to make this demo, but if there is real demand on this functionality, we can actually move this control directly to PnP repo as well. And that's probably it. It's really small demo because not a lot of code, but as you can see, it's really easy to use the existing npm packages, existing npm modules inside SPFx solutions as well.
Now, Alex, don't stop.
Yep.
I will take a few minutes of extra time. So first of all, like you said, this is a really great example on using an existing npm package and just wrapping that as a web part, because it is actually quite easy to do. Like you said, your property pane is much more complicated. Can we go back on the web part and the experience, because just making sure that everybody understands the property pane configuration and all of the different options is one thing. There's quite a lot of different options, and how did you make all of those things actually happen? So you're using property pane controls from PnP, right?
Right, partially.
Partially, yes. Some of those are just out-of-the-box controls. Some of those are then more complex. And then basically you're just taking these properties and feeding them in the end package, which is available from npm.
Yes.
Why did you create the web part? What was there was a good question on the chat. Hey, there's an out-of-the-box Twitter web part. Why would you? Why?
So as I said, there was a question in PnP reusable controls repo. Yeah. If there is a custom control that allows you to display Twitter timeline.
Yeah.
And to showcase how easily we can create this custom control, I decided to create this sample with web part that actually inside contains a control to be used in your custom solutions if you want to.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Plus the fact that out-of-the-box Twitter web part isn't necessarily as flexible from a configuration perspective. To be honest, I can't remember what are the options in out-of-the-box web part, so I can't really compare, but still. But yeah, so quite simple stuff. Now, what's interesting related on the how did you find the React Twitter embed npm package? Just out of curiosity, because I want to actually encourage people to think about these options. There's awesome stuff in the React-based implementations, and any of those components can be actually exposed also as a web part, right? So or as part of your web part. So it's really powerful to find those things. But what would be, Alex, your recommendation on finding what's available? So, do you have a secret?
Well, I don't have a secret, but to be honest, I think that one of like good stuff for any developer is ability to Google, right? And to Google correctly. So basically what I've done, first my idea when I saw this comment, this discussion in PnP controls repo, just to Google and see if there are any React Twitter controls on the web. And basically I saw maybe like 3-4 different implementations. And this one was really what I was looking for, because it has like a lot of different properties and it's React by itself. So it's really easy to use in SPFx.
Yeah, absolutely. Makes perfect sense. There's a comment: do not Google to Bing. You can definitely use Bing as well. To be fair, at least in outside of US, Bing is quite frustrating, so to say. So the US Bing is pretty okay from an experience perspective, but there's a massive difference outside of US as well.
And I'm originally from Belarus, so basically I was using Google for a lot of years before I moved to US.
Whatever works for you, as long as you get your stuff done, right? So that's the objective.
That's true.
But okay, I think that's it for the follow-up chats as well. Makes sense, and I really encourage people to have a look on what kind of React components are available, rather than always implementing from scratch. And obviously, double check also the license. In the case of Alex, it was using MIT license, which means that you can freely use that. But it's really important to understand what the components do as well. But I think that's it. Let's actually move to Martin.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I didn't upgrade Martin as a speaker.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
From all the other time zones, good morning, good evening, and good night.
Yeah, that's inclusive enough.
There we go. Okay, just give me 2 seconds to share this up. Okay, so my demo is for an application customizer, and this has been born out of a fairly long-winded process of migrating actually from classic SharePoint publishing environment over to modern for a fairly large organization. This has been ongoing for a very, very long time for reasons I won't get into. This sample is actually currently in the SPFx extensions. It's actually been there for 10 months since it was first uploaded and moved through the process. So this has already been in the samples for quite a long time. For various reasons of, I think, me being too busy and waiting for the stars to align, it's only just being demoed. But the code's all up there and ready to take a poke. So basically, when they moved over from classic to modern, and admittedly, this is also before Microsoft Search went GA, but one of the things that kind of looked out was the modern search experience being at tenant level, being fairly broad and fairly narrow in terms of customizations available. They were very much missing the ability to have your own customized search center. We've, of course, used the absolutely fantastic modern search PnP components. So we do have a site collection set up that we can execute searches from, and some very, very basic this is just a test environment, so there's nothing particular in there, but that web part works great. And the question is, how do you get people there? And one of the key recommendations tends to be put links in the global nav, build a web part. That never really worked for me. So instead, I've gone the route of an application customizer. And the other query that tends to come around is, how do you configure it? Being an app customizer, it could be deployed to any site collection. It's difficult from a code perspective to say, right, we're going to store the settings in a particular place in a way that's accessible. And of course, coming from a classic project, we realize that those settings are already there. So if you go to search settings under site collection administrator, you've technically got the same things at the web level, but everything's a site collection these days. We already have a whole bunch of properties we can use to configure how search works and where they go. So in this case, I'm simply going to change this value here to point at my custom site collection. And we should find, if the demo works, because, you know, let's face it, they never do. If I refresh that, I now have a search box popping on the top, and this is what I've built. So this is the app customizer that runs off of those custom properties. So unlike a Microsoft search box, which is tenant-wide and global, this you can configure on any site collection, and it will point directly to whatever you have configured in site settings. So here I can hit that up, hit go, and it takes me through to my custom site collection. And that can be any page. It could be configured in any way. It doesn't have to be modern. It doesn't even have to be a SharePoint page, to be honest. It's all it's doing is taking the URL that you've provided and applying the query string in the format that it's used to. And of course, you can use the PnP web parts that are already there. You can wire them up and do everything that way, but this seems to work quite well. The nice thing about deploying it in that way, if I refresh that, is that, again, if you go back and remove those settings, it disappears. So it's quite inobtrusive. You could happily deploy this across your tenant, and it'll only appear in those sites where you have specified a custom search center. And in particular, in the case of my client that I'm working with, by removing these values, and they've already got custom search centers quite heavily in Classic. So up until a point where they are ready to migrate over, they can continue using the existing settings they've already got in their old site collections. They will continue to work side by side. Change the values and remove them, all of those properties go away. Now, the way that this is possible and the easiest way that this works is that all of those properties are actually stored in the web property bag. This is an absolutely beautifully formatted web properties that's come back for standard APIs, REST API, _ API, web/all properties. So these are all the properties about the current website or the current web. If I throw that into code, we will see that a slightly nicer formatted version. If I, grab that. You'll find if you look at one before you've set it.
Sorry, Martin, can you slightly increase the font? I know.
Absolutely do that.
Excellent, excellent.
There we go. Now this is the same site, but before I made any changes in the search settings. So there's one thing to be careful of. If you go looking for these in an existing site where you haven't actually specified a search center, there won't be any values there. These are the values now that I've applied it, and we should find, is it? No, it isn't, because I didn't hit refresh today. Hey, demo fail already. This is excellent. It's been a while, that's all I'll say. There we go. So now we've got these wonderfully formatted properties in there that allow us to define effectively where the search is. And you can see here, the result page address is the one where I'd specified a custom search property. Unfortunately, if you were watching the demo and paying attention, that shouldn't be there because I removed it. And this is a bit of a gotcha you'll find if you're working with any of these particular settings, that if you reset the value to blank, the interface will not show the value, but when you then refresh it and come back in, the value is still there. So even though that is a blank value, the web properties are still storing that. What it's actually said is, I've said to inherit settings, therefore that is the value that we're seeing here, inherit equals true. But the actual result page address value is still there. So you do need to do a double check in the code to make sure that you're looking for the appropriate result page address of this property. And if they've reset it to look instead for something like inherit true or another value, because you can't rely on this property to define whether they've defined it or not. So a very brief look at the code. This is fairly basic. It's not React, it's plain JavaScript. It's a fairly old sample, so some of the methods and practices may have changed since this was initially come through. Is that big enough? If I increase that a little bit, is that okay? Is that readable? Is that fine? I'll leave it like that until someone shouts.
Yep. Okay.
So
okay.
When we initially come in, there's a simple method to get the search redirect page. If that has a value and it's not a blank string, then we'll register our placeholder and then we'll register a whole bunch of on-click events.
Oh, Martin, sorry, can you increase slightly?
Register when people are typing and focus. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How's that?
Just easier. Excellent, excellent.
Outstanding. I think the problem with a 4K monitor. That's what I'm going to blame it on. So getting the research redirect page, this is effectively where we're retrieving those web properties. So SPFx makes this super, super simple. We can simply refer to the SPHTP client, get the current web URL, pass in all properties, and that will then return us in our response all of the web properties we've got. And we simply loop through those, create a simple interface to expose the ones that we're interested in. And we can then pull through these wonderfully named properties from the web property bag. Bearing in mind, there'll be two of these if you've defined it at the site collection and the site level or the web level. One of them will end in site, one of them will end in web. I'm, in this example, only looking for those site properties at the site collection level. You can see here, we're basically saying, right, get the inherit value. If that's equal to true, then set it blank because we'd want to ignore it. Otherwise, pull through that result page address property and then resolve that. And literally as simple as if that is a value, then we go through and register the placeholder and spit that out. I'm not going to spend much time looking at the placeholder itself. It's some fairly basic HTML. And this is pretty boilerplate stuff at this point in terms of all the samples and demos that are out there. In a nutshell, you basically look for your placeholder. If it doesn't exist, you register it, and then you set the inner HTML to a whole bunch of values. We are, of course, using custom styles. So in terms of registering IDs and class names, we're using a SAS file with an automatically generated code behind so that all hooks through because this is TypeScript and that's how SPFx and TypeScript works, which is wonderful. That means that all of our IDs and classes are going to be unique when it gets compiled and deployed. The other thing we're using in the SAS file is a reference to obviously Fabric. So we want to make sure that this follows all of the various theming that applies, so that if they change the theme of the site or implement their own custom theme, we pull all those through. And that means that things like the button colors are all using things like MS Color Theme Primary, the button clear button, the search boxes, and all the different colors are based on that theme. So we don't have to worry about reskinning it or redesigning it as we deploy it. And that's pretty much it. I will warn you now, there are a couple of bugs in this code that I have fixed for a client deployment that I need to go back and apply to this. One of them in particular is that check for the inherit value. So if you do use this sample today, I will try and get this updated by the end of the week. But at the moment, if you set a search property and then remove it, it'll disappear completely. The other thing is this is currently using the styling of the old search box that used to be search this site in the header, because this was actually built and deployed before Microsoft Search went general availability. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent, thank you, Martin. So a few comments, like I said, the Microsoft Search. So can we go to the UI where you can see the Microsoft Search? And for those, because there were some comments, and I'll just use you as my quick assistance here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Martin said, we had some communicational issues. I actually forgot to follow up on the scheduling the demo. So Martin, thank you for volunteering still doing this a few months after the session is still in. So that's definitely on me. Now there was a question related on the Microsoft Search. Is that now going to be taking over then the whole search experience? And the answer is yes. So whatever you're seeing in this demo where the Microsoft Search is in the suite navigation, that is the end call, and we're gradually heading there now. If you, however, like in the Martin's case, you can actually override the search result page using these settings, and we do have videos on that one available as well by using the search heading functionality which is in here. That is a interesting bug related on the page URL overlapping. But yeah, so the search, Microsoft Search, the top suite navigation bar is by design, and that's where we are heading across the world from an experience perspective. So it doesn't matter, are you in SharePoint, or are you in Teams, or are you in Planner, or are you in Office Client, you'll always find the Microsoft Search from the exact same location. That's why we do that. So all good.
So just actually me asking a question now, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So my understanding is that this was announced, I believe, at Ignite, but there are customizations coming for Microsoft Search in terms of being able to define the verticals, refiners, potentially custom display, and those kinds of features. The assumption is that is going to be at a tenant level only because of the nature of the fact it's accessed from Teams.
Correct.
Right. So to be clear, the reason that this was built effectively, because I understand for smaller organizations, absolutely, there might be the case that you don't really need a custom search center in the future because Microsoft Search can take care of all that and it can do all of those customizations. In this particular example, it fills one of two gaps. One is if you have an extremely focused microsite. For example, my client has a site collection that revolves all around good practice articles, and they have loads of custom metadata, a specific focused search experience for good practices only. And that's not really relevant at the tenant level, so they don't want to apply that at the global kind of search experience. The other example is for larger, more distributed organizations, whereby, in this case, it's a very, very big global organization who have, for obvious reasons, one Office 365 tenant and one SharePoint environment. But the business unit that we're dealing with is very, very large. It's thousands of users. So they have their own intranet within the organization. So it's effectively being able to provide a complete intranet experience, including their own dedicated search center, because they've got 5,000 pages and 15,000 documents themselves, without disrupting the top core global enterprise level search that they're going to get through Microsoft Search.
Really good, really good. Also, there's a quick comment from Frank Corner, just following up on things. The search settings are already valid for the top search bar. Yes or no? Answer is yes. So you can actually, the search settings, if you set the search settings to be using a custom results-based, the Microsoft Search will redirect you in SharePoint there, but it's not tenant-wide setting. It's a site collection-wide setting, so it's a slightly different perspective.
Yes, in this case, they didn't want to lose the ability to use Microsoft Search because otherwise no one would be using it.
Yep. Cool. I think that's it for now. So thank you, Martin. Really great stuff and a great example as well. So let's then move into Sudharsan screen and the demo related on enhanced commenting web part in SPFx. This is really, really cool stuff as well.
Since this is my first demo, a small introduction. My name is Sudharsan Kesavanarayanan, and I'm working as a SharePoint consultant at an entity based in Singapore. And so this demo is regarding advanced comments box, where we can, since everyone knows that there is a comment box available in the modern pages. So a slight initiative from one of my clients that they need to add some attachments and some features on that comment box. So we come up with the custom comments box to add it to the modern pages. So these are all some features on the advanced features. One, the comments can be classified as popular, newest, oldest, and attachments. And they can add files, videos, Office file formats, and they can also maintain the attachment size. They can configure the attachment size, and the users can modify their own comments. They can like and reply the nested comments, and they can also delete their own comments unless there is no reply. And there is hashtag and ping users, and there is a new icon functionality where it will represent the today's comments. And these are all some supporting artifacts. I have used a plugin which is developed by Vesa Solutions, jQuery comments. And the other thing is I have used PnP, the SP2 versions, and property controls, jQuery Moment. And there are two pages, which is an inbuilt page available in online, which is doc.aspx and embed.aspx. These pages are mostly used for the preview purpose. So let's move on to the demo. So this is a test page where this is where I have added my comments control in the test page, where you can see here, you can classify the comments, and you can also classify the attachments. And there are a few properties which I have implemented, like the datetime format and the profile pictures, which is round or square, and the navigation, whether you need to enable these navigations or not, and the attachment, whether you need to enable the attachment for the end users to upload. So if you are enabling the attachments, you have to select the document library and the allowed file extension, where you can specify whatever the file extension, but the preview is supported only for the files which are compatible with the two pages. And you can also restrict the file size to be added as an attachment. And there are other properties like you can ping the users and edit the comments. So once this edit comment is enabled, then you can delete their own comments and like and unlike it. And there is a reply and hashtags, and there is a preview where without the preview, you can just see the file name, and once you click on the file name, it will download it. So once you enable the preview, you can see the preview of the file inside the comments box. And for example, if I am uploading some Excel, so you can see all the preview. And you can like it. And one more thing is this comments web part can be added as a web part to the normal modern page, and you can save it as a template. So whatever with the template, when you try to create a page using the template, you can use this comments box. So here I have created a template with this comments box, and then I have disabled the existing out of the box comments so that I can use this custom comments box, and then you can create the pages. So this is it. So here you can view the replies, and you can post it, you can delete it, and you can also ping the users like okay, so this is it, and you can find my sample here. the link JS Advanced Commenting. So that's it, Vesa.
Good. There was a few questions actually on the chat, if you don't mind. There was a few questions related there. Can you actually slightly cover the code as well? What's the learnings in there? Is it based on React? Is it based on something else?
Yes. Sorry.
And you're using PnPjs. No worries. No worries.
Okay. So this is purely a JavaScript web part, and this is the TS files where I have used the property controls and a few of the controls, and I have used the actual JS from the jQuery comments.js, which has been configured in the config.js file as an external JavaScript libraries. And this JS internally use the text complete. So I have enabled those text complete also. Here I have imported it. And these are all the properties I have declared it. And one more thing, whenever you start adding this web part for the first time, it will check for the list, and then it will try to create the list automatically. So, and further on proceeding, it will check and then it will display the comments. So this is a render portion where I have checked and created the list. And the initialize comments, this is where I am initializing the control. And I have used the require format to use that JS and then initialize the comments control. Here, these are all the properties which has been provided by the jQuery comments. And I have slightly customized the jQuery comments.js to get the SPFx, that is the site URL, and append the doc.aspx and then the embed.aspx for the preview purposes. And these are all some of the predefined methods which can see here. So these are all some of the methods and functions available. So I have just used that methods and I have slightly customized it. And I have also used a separate SP helper class where I have used the selective imports and then define all the functions whichever communicated with SharePoint in a separate file, and then I have called this file. Is there anything, Vesa?
Yeah, I think that's really, really cool. Don't close it yet. So few questions and comments and just kind of observations. So using the SharePoint list, absolutely a convenient way of doing things. Now, SharePoint list can store up to millions of items. The question is though, as long as you don't load more than 5,000 in a one. I'm not sure if the web part is taking that into account in the thing,
Yes.
but it's
here.
Yeah.
Yes. I am storing the as a JSON. I'm not storing each and individual item for one page. Clever. Yeah, I'm storing it as a JSON using the multi-line text control. And I have checked for more than 5,000 users and it is working fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And obviously then the JSON is pretty big, so that's one consideration as well. But again, really clever implementation, because out of the box commenting is actually implemented somewhat similar ways. And it has a much more limited experience. So this is really, really cool web part, really, really cool implementation, and nice way of dealing with the storage in the SharePoint. There's a question related, is there a limit on multi-line comment field? I can't remember, but I think if there is, it's pretty massive. It's basically SQL Server behind the scenes, which is storing the list data in that case as well. But I think it's a 64K limit on line. Okay, thank you, Jim. I can't remember all of that stuff, so all good. I think that's it now. So really, really great sample, really great demos for everybody. Let me actually share my screen and we can just continue with Q&A for the additional 10 minutes and have a discussion on anything what's actually happening. So you should see my screen, and let's actually move in. So thank you once again for Alex and Martin and Sudharsan. Really, really great demos, really great stuff, and awesome to have these kind of samples available for other people to benefit as well. So this is really, really cool. Now we do have, like I said, we do have 10 minutes or 9 minutes to be precise, which we can use for the questions. If I missed some of the questions earlier today in the chat window, I do apologize. And there's quite a lot of, again, discussions on the chat, which is great. So if there's anything we want to talk about, please let me know. I can continue my monologues for hours and hours and hours. So I'm not a typical Finn. Well, typical Finn from the perspective that I can do this remotely from my room where I'm alone, not with any people. But so bad joke. Finns, yeah, there's a cultural things on these things. Anyway. This is much safer when you are actually just a virtual thing. I don't know if you're a bot or are you a real thing. I can actually put also just for the sake of it, we do have the 9 minutes sake of it, put the video on as well if somebody wants to. If that makes you feel more comfortable, people actually typically like that. I'm a real person. Are there Microsoft Teams templates available now? I think there should be out of the box. There should be templates for the creation, out of the box templates in Microsoft Teams. Vertical templates and horizontal templates definitely coming as well. Now, there are multiple different kind of templates. Also, the PnP tenant templating actually supports Microsoft Teams. So that's a one template perspective on the Microsoft Teams as well. So you can define what kind of structures and apply them. Nice cert. Yes, it is. It is intended to be the SharePoint green or teal. Do I have a whole lemon next to the water? No, actually, that's a stress ball. So for those who are wondering, so I can actually do that. So, if my root site has been enabled with publishing features, can I convert it to communication site template? I think answer is no. So the communication template transformation actually checks if the publishing features are enabled. So the answer is no. Now, Praveen, what you could do is flip the site in your root with another site. And there's a swap site collection commandlet in SharePoint Online PowerShells, which basically then you could create a communication site based on, let's say, the lookbook designs, and then you'll just swap that to the root. So that's one way of doing that. Where can I get the information on the Teams template? I really don't know for now. I would actually, right now, I would go to Google by myself trying to find that. But if somebody has information on that, please share it in the chat window. Any updates on the SharePoint Starter Kit? In plans, to be honest, so the people, Boo Cameron and Eric Overfield and a few other MVPs have been actively working on the samples. The Starter Kit V2, which will support SharePoint 2019 in a limited level. So for those web parts which are available, is in the pipeline in the roadmap. It is right now actually pending for me to have a few hours on time to create the templates, so we can actually create then repackage the V2. So it is actually coming. If you're interested on actually using SharePoint Starter Kit web parts, and they are already available in the V2 repo in the Starter Kit repository, and you can actually go there and download those web parts which are compatible with SharePoint 2019 as an example. And there's also SharePoint Starter Kit V2, all of the web parts will be individual, which is really interesting. So you can actually take any of the web parts as an individual thing, install that to your tenant and start using them. So should be useful for all of you. Now, updates on Parker Place, that would be a question for David, but yeah, Parker's Place is definitely coming in pipeline. We have so many ideas related on the Parker's Place, basically the Slack store for Parker the Porcupine, and all of the profits will go to charity. So it's basically sharing is caring mentality there as well. But I think we are getting closer and closer on actually opening up the first version. We have too many ideas. I think what we need to do is get just a version out with this, whatever we have, and then keep on evolving based on that. But we'll see, should happen soon. That vertical screen is really coming in handy for PowerPoint presenter. Yeah, yes, it is. That's actually true. So what I actually do, this is a 4K screen, and then I have fancy screens, and then I'm actually splitting that. So that's pretty convenient. So I have the two screens here and here, and actually I have another vertical one in this side as well. So good point, by the way, that you can actually see everything what I have on that screen, which is a good reminder. When are we getting new placeholder locations footer which isn't stuck at the bottom of screen? Definitely in a pipeline, people know that we want it. It is high in the user voice. Right now, it looks like it won't be unfortunately available with the 1.11 release because it's waiting for the pages people because the page's experience is owned by a certain set of people, that team to get the stuff actually and readiness for that stuff. But the footer which isn't stuck and floating on the top definitely need to happen. There's so many customers who are saying that that's a critical thing which needs to happen. We're seeing issues using @SPO site design tasks, merging multiple site scripts. That's a pity. The only way we can actually help on those things is basically if you have a Premier support, open a Premier support ticket, or then go to the SP DevDocs issue list and open an issue, and then we'll see if we can actually find a resolution on that one. But we would need to have details on what are you doing and what's the end result. And a repro is always important. So please don't go to the issue list and say X and Y Z doesn't work, because the immediate follow-up question is, okay, what did you do? So what are you trying to achieve, and what did you do to get that? Because we can't fix it unless we know how to reproduce an issue. That's always the key. I recall setting in the root side, you had to unhub a site first before making the root, then you have the hub site afterward. Still the case. On the Ralph's question, I'm not sure if the hub site checking is there. It might be. I haven't double checked that. So shouldn't be a massive deal if you need to unhub. Well, actually, you need to probably then reassociate the sites which are associated to the hub. So there's a certain set of amount of work to be done if you need to do unhubbing. So cool kids are unhubbing this summer. No, cool kids are hubbing this summer. Don't quote me on that one. More peaks, yeah, David is confirming that. When I have a real conversation about the personal lifeguard support. It's a continuing discussion. So the personal lifeguard out-of-the-box support for that one is owned by our Norwegian team. So basically the search and delve people who sit in the Norway. Mikael Svensson is having active discussions and actively pushing there. He is part of those people, but Mikael is also an ex-MVP and part of the larger way of thinking on reusability and things. So I'm hoping that we'll have a definite answer on that one pretty soon. Any update on PnP property pane, file picker control? Same applies actually on that one as well. So can we actually use out-of-the-box control, or can we just use whatever is there? So all of that is getting worked on. Unfortunately, no definite answers. What are the plans to create an API for creating a tenant app catalog? Yes, there is actually plans for that one. Let's see. It might be actually already in testing. Anyway, there is we want to make sure that there's an API way of creating app catalog if it doesn't exist already, and that way of checking is it already there or not. And that's awesome reminder. I need to really write that down because I need to follow up with the engineer on the documentation. It might be that we actually have it, but I haven't documented that yet. Thank you for a reminder on that one. Good. I think that's it for the most of the questions. It's good to see that there's always questions. So we should have more time on the Q&A and having this kind of a chat, even though this is a monologue, but kind of a chat with you on the other side as well, because we definitely want to help you with the questions and where we can, where it's possible. On the Johan's comment, I don't know, but I think that's it. Thank you for the demos. The video recording will be out within 24 hours in the YouTube channel again. Thank you for joining in here, being active on the chat, super important. Thank you for volunteering on demos, Sudharsan, Alex, and Martin. Really great stuff. We'll push out the individual demos as videos also in upcoming weeks. But that's it for now. So thank you. Have a great rest of Thursday, and hoping to stay up to date in social media and in other channels. So bye-bye.